Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
No, one more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Come on. Welcome. Do you guys want to be lawyers?
Yes. Absolutely.
No, I'm sorry. Do you guys want to be lawyers?
Yes.
Yeah, come on, you got it. The central premise of all this is you got to want it. You know, it's just not, it doesn't come easily. It comes easily to some people. But I can't stress anything more than welcome. Welcome. You know, it's really so easy for me because I don't want to be here if you don't want it. I really truly don't want to be here if you don't want it. You with me? Now, if you want it, that's gonna pump me up, right? It's your life. So welcome to Albany Law School, and welcome to. Is it still your position, notwithstanding my first few words, is it still your position you want to be lawyers?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, right, yeah. Good. Well, if you really want that, wouldn't it make sense to begin thinking like a lawyer today? Becoming aware how lawyers actually think. Talk to me. Yeah, I know it's first class. I know you don't know me yet, but this is like an AA meeting. You with me? I need feedback. I feed on your energy, right? So if I don't get your energy, I'm just going to go, I'm useless. But do you get, you have a choice. You can become aware of how we reason now, try to adapt to it now, or you can remain unaware of how we reason and try to figure it out when you get to law school. What makes more sense, now or in law school?
No.
But do you all agree with that? Because what we're doing now is reasoning. You see, what we're not doing here, politics. What we're not doing here are polemics. What we're not doing here is philosophy. None of that is here. You with me? So if you want to be a philosopher, go get a PhD in philosophy. You with me? You want to be a political scientist? Go get a PhD in political science. Right? But if you want to be a lawyer, it's really not anywhere near that complicated. So the program is at Albany Law, the Pathway Program is a program designed, it has two objectives. So that you tell me if it makes sense, right? And it's okay if it doesn't. It's okay. But the two objectives are, one, prepare primary. One is you got to prepare for the LSAT. Would everybody agree it should be a primary objective of whatever you're doing now to prepare for the law school admissions test? Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, this is our process. You with me? In other words, I'll tell you a little bit of myself, but it's not really about me. But gosh, we get nowhere without persuasion. You with me?
Yeah.
That's it. And it's not, again, it's none of these other things you see in life. It's not it's this, and I'll get into this. This is persuasion, if you're good at this, all right? And it doesn't know any ethnicity, it doesn't know any gender, it doesn't know any socioeconomic status, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's got to do with the gray matter between your ears, right? So what we're here for, right, is one, primarily, right, prepare you for this task. But, again, I've been doing this for 1995. How long ago was that? Like 25 years? Okay. So that is some evidence that I understand the LSAT. You with me? It's also some evidence that I have lived a hollow, shallow, desperate, and empty existence. You with me? That doesn't make me right about a damn thing. You with me? Talk, because it really is about changing the way you think. It's so bloody straight, at least for me, right? It's so bloody straightforward. It's changing the way you think. And it's just here. So the first goal here, primary goal, is to prepare you for the admissions test so that you can get in. But there's a companion goal, an accompanying goal, which is what if your LSAT score goes up as you begin to reason more now the way you're going to have to reason in law school. And that's the other premise here. In other words, this program is based on, okay, you'll meet Jim. Jim will be up in 3 weeks or so. And our responsibility here is I'm going to work with you to change the way you read. It's just so fun. It's so basic. Keith, you'll be meeting Keith today, Keith Hirasawa. And Keith is a tenured faculty member at the law school. And Keith is going to work with you on how to write like a lawyer, right? So let me just, if I can weave this together, this very ancient book. One of the things you have to do in court, and this is not about, but my background has certainly been in courts, in trial courts, and appellate courts, and in therapy. But you don't have one without the, like love and marriage, you don't get one without the other, I mean, it's not healthy stuff, but it's interesting stuff. So while I'm not doing the LSAT, I'm in it's like I'm bipolar. But law is about understanding. Law is about preparation. If you don't have the passion to prepare, you're in the wrong room. You with me? There are no shortcuts. There are no tricks. And if there were, I wouldn't use them. Because I'm going to prevail. My client's not there to, my client's there to win. I'm going to win. I may not, right? But my attitude, I'm going to win. But I'm not going to win by faking anybody out. I'm going to win by preparing. So in this first class, I don't think we're going to crack open a book because that's not what it's about. It's one, to familiarize you with this program, to give you a basis on whether is it right for you. Is it a fit for you? If it's not a fit for you, you shouldn't do it. Absolutely not. But if it is a fit for you, I want you all in. You with me? Then you need to prepare for this test the way I prepare for trial. There is no BS. You with me? If you want this, right, you have to take people out who also want it. You got it? That in the grand scheme of things, there are very, very, as a percent of the total population you get, that percent of people who are attorneys is minuscule. You with me? So the vast, vast, vast majority of people are not attorneys. And you want to be a what?
A lawyer.
Oh,
Attorney.
go figure. Go figure. So you want to do what the vast, 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 vast majority of people in this country have chosen not to do or are incapable of doing. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
But you just want to do it on the slide, right?
No.
You just want to use tricks and shortcuts and no big deal. I'm going to crush you. You with me? If you ever came into the profession that way, I would absolutely crush you. Not because I have no interest in academics. I have none. I love law. It's not academics. It's psychology. It's preparation psychology. So this class is really about sports. Not about sports, but it's analogous to sports. Anybody serious about sports in here? Well, has anybody played either in a college or is that a yes?
High school.
And what was the organized sport?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse. And organized sport?
Tennis.
Tennis. Okay. And did there come a time that would it fair to say we've not had this conversation in advance? But you're not a plant. But you want to now be lawyers, right? So I'm saying this is the if it's intelligent, this is simply, who doesn't have this? It's one thing to have something and not have used it. Because you may not be where you have it, or you may not be where you need it or something, right? This is no big deal. I'm saying preparation for the LSAT is analogous to any preparation you've done for sports. Any, so long as you've done it reasonably seriously. So with respect to tennis, would it be fair to say that in order to play tennis, you must learn to serve? Would it be fair to say in order to play tennis, you must acquire a stroke. And would it be fair to say you become aware of, before you step on the court, you spend a lot of time understanding what you're doing once you get on the court.
Yeah.
So if you were playing in a tournament, would it be fair to say you would spend a certain amount of time actually during the event? Is that fair to say? Would it be fair to say that the time you prepared for that event was far more than the time you participated in the event?
Yeah.
Lacrosse. Is it fair to say you also had to learn some techniques? Did you have to learn the rules?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I hate when that happens. Did you have to learn some of the fundamentals involved in the sport? Wasn't it fun as you came to learn it?
Yeah.
And with respect to tennis, wasn't it fun as you came to learn it?
Yeah.
And didn't you feel a sense of accomplishment as you got better at it? And didn't it motivate you both to learn it and to become more accomplished at it? And isn't it all entirely selfish? You were doing it because it caused you to feel good about yourself. Yeah. Well, it depends what the word selfish means, right? Is it fair to say in playing lacrosse, you spent much more time preparing for that first match than participating in that first match?
Yeah.
And would it be fair to say that is across the board for any accomplished lacrosse player?
Yeah.
And it's fair to say that's going to be across the board for any accomplished tennis player? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you don't have the passion to prepare as you would for, so you know, if you play sports, you love to play sports. And so it's not a burden. You're raising your self-esteem. You're increasing your ability, right? You live in the dream. Okay. Welcome to law. If you're with me, law is analogous to that. So now I can get into, you know, the world I have been in. Okay, so I have been a felony trial attorney in criminal courts, and I have been a felony appellate attorney. Most of that time has been in the appellate division. How much time do you think? So in the appellate world, much of what I did was to argue homicides. So I've done what I'm supposed to do as a lawyer. How much time do you think you get to argue a homicide in the appellate division?
10 minutes.
How do you know that? Yeah, that's right. You can request 15 minutes. You can request 15. I never got 15. Oh, you got that one right?
I work for an attorney that she does appeals, and
Oh.
we put 15 minutes on our cover sheet.
You never get it. Well, at least I was in the second department, so maybe up
Your
here.
department's a little. They even let you reserve time to rebuttal at the end.
Oh yeah, no. In the second department, they just had this long cane with a hook at the end of it.
I'm sure.
Softer up here.
But you know what I'm getting is this is so easy. It's nothing easy about it, but it's so right if it's on your heart, and it's so desperately wrong if it's not. How much time do you think goes into preparing for the 5 minutes I'm likely to actually get, even if they say yes to 15? Well, again, the second department, ain't no way you get 15 minutes. And again, I've argued multiple homicides. I've argued multiple double homicides. How much time do you think goes into preparing for those 5 minutes?
Hundreds of hours. Hundreds.
Yeah, you know, and when you see Jim has had, and Jim will be more, but Jim's up here, so so Jim will know all about what the department is. Yeah, that's a 70-page brief that I write, and that 70-page brief, I think Jim had the longest one. I think one of Jim's trial transcripts, you can ask him, I think it went 14,000 pages. Well, because it's the big. I mean, I don't mean it that way, right? But it's like, hello, it's the big leagues. You know, it's like you just, you know. A typical trial transcript for me would be about 3,500, 4,500 pages. How carefully do you think you have to read those 3,500 pages?
Very carefully.
Yeah,
Very carefully.
yeah. But do you get, again, by analogy, and this is no different from sports. This is no different from sports. Is if it's not on your heart, don't do it. all right? Because it would be, in my world, you would argue once every 3 to 4 months of those cases. And that's the principle I want to get across to you. Do you get coming in here, if this does turn out to be a fit, you got to walk the walk. You all get that. When you come out the other side, what are you? Lawyer. And what are most people not? Yeah. But I mean, you think about it, it's your life. I don't know how to break the news to you, but you're gonna die. You with me? I mean, I'm gonna lead the charge. I have no basis to complain. But you're gonna die. So why would you? So I don't get it. Like, why would you not be doing what's on your heart while you're here? Because you're gonna leave. It is the Hotel California. We are leaving. Yeah. So you want this, and I need that motivation in you to be successful in here. Because again, it's not. My final interview with God's on the calendar. With me. So this really is: are you in the right place, and is it leading you to that place you want to be? That's meaningful. I don't care what your reason is. If your reason is to make money, terrific, make money. If your reason is to advantage the disadvantaged, terrific, advantage the disadvantaged. I could care less what you want to do, but be passionate about what you're doing to get there. So that lays the groundwork for what I'm doing today. And you're going to meet Persia. Persia's with the admissions office at Albany Law School. You're going to meet Keith, who will be doing the legal writing piece with you. So you're going to have a very good feel at the end of today. Who's involved, right? Not just, and where we're going with this. So with laying that as the groundwork, would it make sense that you take some time to understand what the LSAT is doing? Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you'll hear this stuff, right? You'll hear, how many times you think I've heard, oh, I'm just not good on standardized tests? How many times do you think I've heard that in 25 years? How many times you think I've heard there's not enough what? Loser. You with me? I hear that and I'm going like this, You're a loser. Now you're going to change and you're going to come to a different view, but at the moment you're a loser. There's plenty of time. The person next to you doesn't have enough time. You have plenty of time. They don't have a plan. You have a plan. So that's my mission today, is that if you understand this test, and if you can connect, if you could connect that as you improve on your LSAT score, it's likely your law school class rank goes up. Would that incentivize you to prepare for the LSAT? Talk to me.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to make that case. And the case is, in my judgment, clear and convincing. Right? And that's where we're coming from. If that's not the case, because it's desperately the wrong place. You with me? So, but how cool is that? Because you're going to start thinking, if you can, you're going to start thinking this way. Not everybody can. And I don't understand why, because I kind of think God set me down just thinking that way, right? But it could be that I've learned to think this way. It's not Aristotle. It's not formal logic. It's not a content-based test. Got almost nothing to do with that. It's how are you going to solve? So in court, if we're going to put somebody on the stand, would you want the person placed on the stand to be an authority you could rely on? Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You'd still want to be able to cross-examine the person, right? Because is it fair to say people who are quite bright are often quite mistaken? So it's not a cure-all, right? But if I had a choice between an expert and a non-expert, I want to hear from an expert.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to qualify this person as an expert before I read this. Okay, and you tell me if you're satisfied the person is an expert. So with respect to the expertise, I'm going to offer this witness as having expertise in understanding the purpose and the design of the LSAT. Okay? So if you had a person here who participated in constructing the LSAT, would you want to hear from that person?
Yes.
Would you?
Yes.
And would you, well, I don't have the person here in person, but I do have what the person's written. Would you agree with me that what one writes is as authoritative as what one says? Talk to me.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm reading from now, this is written by Thomas White. And here's Thomas's. Imagine we have Thomas come up and take the stand, right? And you're saying, okay, who is this guy? Because you're majority, right? You know, what's with this? It's going to be boring. And here's what Thomas White testifies to. Now, this is from 1994. You with me? So would it be fair to say this material is dated?
Yeah.
Do you think the purpose of the LSAT has changed since 1994?
No.
No. So here's Thomas White's bona fides. I've worked with standardized testing and the LSAT for 25 years. During that time, I have administered, criticized, designed, interpreted, justified, promoted, studied, taught, thought, and testified about the LSAT. I've been responsible for the administration of more than 1.5 million tests, over half of the LSATs ever given. And I have studied the results of over 2 million administrations. I have learned what there is to know about this generally unfamiliar test and the way test takers respond to it, and now I will have an opportunity to share a little of what I've learned with you. Would you agree that at that point we're in court, right? I'd look over at the judge, I'd say, Judge, I'm moving this witness as an expert. If you were the judge, what would you say?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, with respect to, I'm not offering as an expert in evaluating the worth of cars, right? He's in for a specific purpose, right? So now you would hear that. You wouldn't hear me saying that to the judge, but you would now be the jury and you would agree. Okay. So would you like me to ask the witness, what's the LSAT all about? Would you like me to say, Mr. White, what is the purpose of the LSAT? What are you doing? I mean, I could go Bronx, I'm from the Bronx. So I could like make it Bronx-like, you know, right? You know, like, huh? I'm refraining from cursing. You know, but, you know, okay. And here's what Mr. White would testify to. The LSAT tests your skill at being able to, quote, unquote, think like a lawyer. That is, reasoning in the principal ways law schools and the legal system require. That is the principal way of reasoning all law schools require, I reckon. This way of thinking is generally unfamiliar to people who are considering a legal education, and the LSAT attempts to measure their aptitude for it. Would it be fair to say this is unfamiliar to most of you? Talk to me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's talking about. And if something is unfamiliar, can you measure somebody's aptitude for it? In other words, if you've never been exposed to something, but you're pretty good at it, wouldn't that measure your aptitude?
Yeah.
You better would. You better would. That's what's going on. All right. There's one more quote here. The LSAT measures skills and knowledge that typically develop over a long period of time, so that you cannot prepare for the test by making a last-minute effort to master specific subject areas. You get this is a way of life. That I started doing this when God knows when, 1983 or something. I'm still doing it. You with me? So again, meaning tricks and shortcuts are going to get you according to the person who designed the test, right? Tricks and shortcuts are getting you nowhere. There's one other quote in here. Let me leave it there. Would it follow from his testimony that if you learn how to think in the way law schools are going to teach you to think, you're going to be rewarded for it on this test, since that's what they're measuring for?
Yes.
Right. Again, it's just so not complicated. The transition can be hard, but that's because it's psychometric. We'll get into that. So this can be impossible for some people because your psychology is not going to allow you to do it. But what I'm trying to get to you is, it can be hard. It depends on everybody's story is different, right? But if you come from an environment where there were no attorneys, again, it's not about me, right? But I don't come from a line of attorneys. I come from a line of immigrants. If no one's ever told you you have a good head on your shoulders, it's harder to accept you may have a good head on your shoulders. If you don't have, you know what I'm saying, if there aren't attorneys in your personal life, in your extended life, or in your community, it's harder for some of us to see that we can be. And there were no attorneys. I mean, I grew up on 168th Street in Bronx, so there were no attorneys. So everybody's experience is leading to different places. But what I'm saying to you is, I don't understand why anyone can't do this, because it's celebrating what God sent us down with, which is the ability to reason. That really is all this is. Can you reason? And of course you can reason because you're here. You know, not in this class, but I mean because you've been sent down. So since we now have the person who created the test telling us that the measuring, do you think like a lawyer, have we established that that is probably what the test is doing? Mm-hmm. Talk to me.
Yes.
Okay. And again, this is how we work in law. We work by getting agreement, right? Have you seen anything in Washington in the past 2 months where anybody's working for any agreement? Well, if you have, point it out to me. All right. This is not about that. Okay. But what does that mean? What does it mean it measures how you think? Where do I go with that? So here's where I go with that. So if you're going to be, when you're going to be a lawyer, not if, when you're going to be a lawyer, is it fair to say you're going to need to communicate with other lawyers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, fair to say. And is it fair to say that communication generally takes the form of being either in writing or is oral?
Yes.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
And is it fair to say the person you're communicating with has been taught how to read the way attorneys read, and the person you're communicating with has been taught to write the way attorneys have been taught to write? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And that if you did not have those skills, you might be a wonderfully bright person, right? You might have your 3.8 GPA in advanced microphysics or something. But if you don't communicate the way we're taught to communicate, well, it's not going to work out. Okay. So every law school in the country, when you begin, you're going to take, and that's Keith's piece in this, right? Is you're going to have to take a legal writing class in your first year. And when you write, you're going to write in the right format. Now, they can change the acronym, but they can't change the process. You with me? So your final exams in law school in the first year should all be in essay form. I mean, there may be some exceptions now, but basically it's all essay form. Right? But you're not writing like I don't write like a college student. How many of those 70-page briefs I've written do you think have been written like a college student? Talk to me. How many of those 70-page briefs do you think have been written like a journalist? 0. You with me? I could take every profession and tell you, without doubt, they are not written to reflect an ability to communicate in that community. You with me? If you're a journalist and you don't understand me, That's your problem. Unless I'm trying to get a job in journalism. Yes? It's a different skill. Okay. So I'm telling you, and Ben Keel will tell you, when you come in here, you're going to have to learn to write this way. That's not the way a journalist writes. It's not the way a poet writes. It's not the way anybody writes that I'm aware of, except lawyers. Okay. So doesn't that mean you need to change the way you write? As you sit here now, you write some way, yes?
Yes.
Doesn't that imply, facts established, facts inferred, doesn't that imply you're going to have to change the way you write? Talk to me.
Yes.
Okay. How about reading? Do you think I read like a journalist? Think I read like a poet? You think I read like a novelist? What do I read like?
Lawyer.
Ah, go figure. It comes in handy. But you get, that's distinguishable, that a journalist and I could read the very same information and we would be on different planets. And if it was an issue of journalism, I suspect the journalism major would be correct. If it was an issue of law, I'm going to go with me. Is it fair to say, however you read now, you have not been taught to read as I have been taught to read, and as every law school student on the planet will be taught to read? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You got it, yes?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that today, it's no big deal. Well, except psychologically, in which case it's a very big deal. And that word is you're going to read textually. And we'll get into what that means, but you are going to change, I promise. And then you're going to read this way for how long?
Rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's what this is about. So for God's sake, don't do this if you're not willing to really commit to it, right? Because it's for the rest of your life. And see, that's how I get to live, because I'll be gone. But if you really continue down this path, right, well, a little bit of me there. So it's entirely, everything I do is entirely selfish, depending on what that word means. So now let me put the proposition to you. We've agreed as an established fact that you will need to change the way you read. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody agree?
Yes.
And we've also agreed as an established fact that you will have to change the way you read and write. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to infer from that, and we'll get into an inference is a fact. An inference is a thing we claim is a fact, but is not an explicit fact. So we're constructing this argument, yes? And we now have two explicit facts, meaning facts we're all saying are established. One, I need to change the way I read in law school, and the other is I need to change the way I write in law school. But now I want to infer a fact from those two facts. And this is the reasoning process. So here's what I want to infer. I infer that when you change the way you read and you change the way you write, you change the way you think. Would you agree with that inference? Change the way you read, you're no longer reading as you did, and you change the way you write. You're saying, son of a bitch, I'd never read that way again. Would you agree with me as I infer you have now changed the way you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
And you get, this is the process you'll be going through forever. What we're doing now, right, is what lawyers do. Because now it's not polemics. Unless I'm just making this stuff up, right? But that's not going to last long if I'm doing that, right? It's not polemics, it's not rhetoric. It's that. And then we go back and I would see, and then I'd play you back Mr. White's testimony, and didn't Mr. White tell us a few moments ago that what the test measures is, do you think like a lawyer? Yes? So the premise of this program is, if you change the way you read, and read the way lawyers have been doing, so there'll be nobody in this room who's not a lawyer, you with me? Ain't gonna happen. And there'll be only two people in this room, Jim and myself. But you get how we constructed the program. If you change the way you read, and you change the way you write, you're going to change the way you think, and you're going to come into law school already thinking like a what?
A lawyer.
So where's Aristotle? It's, do you want to do it or not? You know, if you want to do it, this puppy works. It works if you can do it, right? It's not going to work if you can't do it. If God has other plans for you, what am I going to change? But, you know, we've been doing it, I think since 2014 at Albany Law. We also do this at Pace Law and at Toro Law on the island. Programs all cross-recognized, so if you complete a program here and you want to go to a different school, they recognize that. And the benefits that run with the program in one place, they run with the program in all the other places. And don't you kind of infer from that the law schools are persuaded this makes sense? That doesn't mean it's going to be fit for you. In a million years it doesn't mean that. It works. And when the students who come through the program outperform. And that's something, you know, you can ask Persia when she comes in as well. What evidence do you see that there is this spillover from here to law school? Because I can address the difference we have seen in LSAT scores. And they are, again, everybody's different. But the differences are material, very material, in terms of LSAT scores going up. And wouldn't it be nice to get admitted to law school? Wouldn't it be nice to be offered a scholarship once you're admitted? Talk to me.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say in all these years, it's over 90% of students who have received scholarship upon admission. So it's not even close. It's law school's not graduate school like other graduate schools. Law school is it's certainly getting more competitive now. But law school is, the goal here is not just to go and then fall into debt for 3 years. The goal is to go and stay out of debt for the entire run. And it's beyond you. If you can do this, that'll happen. So does that part make sense? Am I doing okay?
That's a question?
Let me think about that. Let me see. Oh, it's a law class. Yeah, yeah. Why not? Yes, of course.
Yeah. How does changing the way you read and you write translate to a better score on the LSAT? You know, so if you become a more efficient reader, more proficient writer, how does that, you know, equal a better score on the LSAT?
And
in the
would
next
you
6 months or so, what have you?
would you be kind enough to allow me the next 4 hours to demonstrate precise? It's a great question, because that's why I'm like, who cares? Yeah.
Right.
Right. That's
Gotcha.
where we're heading next.
Okay.
Okay. And if I don't, you say, Peter. Huh? Okay.
I'll talk to you at 4 o'clock. I'll see.